Osaka Castle, Japan's most impregnable fortress, fell in a single afternoon. The heir inside was 22 years old. The warlord outside had been waiting 50 years for this moment. How does the mightiest dynasty in Japan simply disappear? Osaka Castle fell in a single afternoon. The mightiest dynasty in Japan, gone within one generation. How did Hideyoshi's clan destroy itself before it could even begin? In 1603, 3 years after his decisive victory at Sekigahara, Tokugawa Ieyasu was appointed shogun by the emperor, the first man to hold that title in over a century. But the prize was not fully secure. In Osaka Castle, Toyotomi Hideyori, the teenage son of the late Hideyoshi, still commanded the loyalty of thousands of samurai, sitting atop a mountain of gold left by his father. Ieyasu had won the war, but Hideyori's very existence was a challenge to everything he was trying to build. Ieyasu moved with calculated patience. In 1605, just 2 years after becoming shogun, he abdicated in favor of his son Hidetada. The message was unmistakable. The Tokugawa line would rule in perpetuity. The shogunate was not a reward for merit. It was a family inheritance. Hideyori, watching from Osaka, understood the implication. His father had been the most powerful man in Japan. He himself was being written out of history without a single battle. The question was no longer whether conflict would come, only when Ieyasu would manufacture a reason. Inside Osaka Castle, Hideyori grew into a young man of remarkable bearing. Handsome, educated, beloved by those who served him. Ronin samurai from across Japan, masterless warriors left adrift by Ieyasu's political purges, found their way to Osaka and pledged their swords to the Toyotomi heir. By 1614, the castle's garrison had swelled to nearly 90,000 men. Ieyasu watched this gathering of veterans and outcasts with cold recognition. An army was assembling itself around a boy who had never commanded one. He would not wait indefinitely. The pretext arrived in the form of a bell. In 1614, the great temple bell of Hokoji in Kyoto was finally completed, a gift funded by Hideyori. The dedication inscription read, "Kokka Anko," may the state be peaceful and prosperous. Ieyasu's advisors declared it a hidden curse. The characters for Ie and Yasu, the two halves of Ieyasu's own name, were split apart in the text. A prayer, they claimed, for his destruction. It was almost certainly a fabrication. But it was all Ieyasu needed. The Siege of Osaka had its justification. In the winter of 1614, Tokugawa Ieyasu mobilized the largest army Japan had seen since Sekigahara. 200,000 soldiers advanced on Osaka from multiple directions, encircling the great castle in a ring of steel and fire. Cannons, including heavy artillery purchased from the Dutch and English, bombarded the outer towers day and night. The sound, witnesses recorded, could be heard for 30 miles. Inside the walls, Hideyori's defenders were outnumbered nearly 2 2-1. But Osaka Castle was not simply a fortress. It was the greatest military construction in Japanese history.
Among the thousands who came to fight for the Toyotomi, one man stood apart. Sanada Yukimura, son of a legendary strategist, veteran of a dozen campaigns, arrived at Osaka, having spent 14 years in exile, his reputation as one of Japan's finest tacticians intact. The defenders welcomed him as a gift from the gods. Yukimura took one look at the castle's southwestern flank, identified its critical vulnerability, and immediately set about solving it. He would build something Ieyasu's generals had never encountered. He called it the Sanada-maru.
The Sanada-maru was a masterpiece of defensive engineering. A semicircular barbican fort extending from the main walls, bristling with gunmen and archers, positioned to create devastating crossfire against any assault on the castle's most exposed side. When Tokugawa forces attacked in November 1614, Yukimura's guns cut them down in waves. Thousands of Tokugawa soldiers died against that single outwork, unable to advance, unable to retreat. Among the surviving veterans, word spread quickly. The Red Demon of Osaka could not be taken by force. Ieyasu would need to find another way.
Unable to break through Osaka's defenses by force, Ieyasu changed tactics. He opened peace negotiations, offering Hideyori favorable terms, a withdrawal of Tokugawa forces in exchange for the filling of the outer moat. Hideyori and his mother Yodo Dono accepted. But once Ieyasu's engineers began working, they did not stop at the outer moat. Methodically, systematically, they filled the second moat. Then, the third. When Hideyori's advisors protested, the work was already done. What had taken generations to dig was gone in weeks. Osaka Castle, impregnable for decades, now stood almost naked.
Hideyori walked the walls and understood what had been done to him. The moats his father had commissioned, the water defenses that had made Osaka the most formidable castle in Asia, were gone. Ieyasu had achieved without a single battle what 3 months of bombardment had failed to accomplish. Hideyori's advisors urged him to seek a political solution, to submit, to negotiate further. Yukimura told him plainly, there would be no more negotiation. Ieyasu had stripped the castle bare without destroying it. The summer campaign was already inevitable. In the summer of 1615, Ieyasu came back. This time, there was no siege, no encirclement, no diplomatic pretext. The Tokugawa army crossed the Yamato River and advanced directly on Osaka from multiple directions. With the moats gone, the castle's defensive depth had collapsed. Hideyori's army, still nearly 90,000 strong, moved out to meet them on the open plain at Tennoji. June 3rd, 1615. It would be the last major battle of Japan's age of civil war, and everyone who fought that day knew it.
Sanada Yukimura did not fight to survive. He fought to make history. Commanding the Toyotomi vanguard in blazing red armor, he led a charge directly into the heart of Ieyasu's command position. cutting through unit after unit, pushing so deep into enemy lines that for a terrifying moment, Ieyasu himself was forced to flee. Witnesses recorded that the old shogun turned his horse and rode for his life. Yukimura had come within 100 yards of ending the Tokugawa dynasty with a single sword stroke. But there were simply too many of them.
Surrounded, exhausted, and bleeding from multiple wounds, Yukimura finally stopped. He sat down beneath a pine tree on the edge of the battlefield. When a Tokugawa soldier found him there, Yukimura reportedly said, "I am tired. Take my head." He died as he had fought, without surrender, without retreat, without compromise. The Toyotomi line would not survive him long. With Yukimura gone, the defense of Osaka Castle collapsed. By nightfall, Ieyasu's forces had breached the outer gates. The fire that consumed the castle could be seen from 30 miles away.
Inside the burning castle, Toyotomi Hideyori faced the end with his mother Yododono at his side. He was 22 years old. He had never commanded an army in the field, never left Osaka's walls without escort, never been given the chance to be the man his father had hoped to make him. They retreated to the innermost keep as the fire spread. When Ieyasu's messengers arrived offering terms of surrender, Yododono refused. On June 4th, 1615, mother and son died together as the castle burned. The Toyotomi clan, the dynasty that had unified Japan, was extinguished. In the days that followed, Ieyasu moved with clinical precision to eliminate every remaining trace of Toyotomi power. The castle's surviving defenders were hunted down. Hideyori's young son, Ieyasu's own great-grandchild by marriage, was executed to prevent any future claim to succession. The stones of Osaka Castle were dismantled and repurposed for new Tokugawa fortifications. Hideyoshi's legacy, the man who had risen from a peasant sandal carrier to ruler of Japan, was methodically and completely erased. Japan now had one master, one dynasty, one future. It would remain that way for 2.5 centuries.
The Siege of Osaka was not simply a military victory. It was the final punctuation mark on a century of warfare that had consumed Japan since 1467. Every major warlord who might have challenged Tokugawa supremacy was now dead, defeated, or submissive. The political architecture Ieyasu had spent his entire life constructing was now uncontested. The Edo period, 250 years of enforced peace, rigid hierarchy, and extraordinary cultural flourishing, began the morning the fires at Osaka went out. Whether the destruction of the Toyotomi was necessary or merely ruthless remains a question historians still argue.
Tokugawa Ieyasu died just 1 year after the fall of Osaka, in April 1616, at the age of 73. He had outlasted every rival, survived every reversal, and outlived the age itself.
Where Nobunaga had conquered by force, and Hideyoshi by charisma, Ieyasu conquered by patience, waiting, absorbing setbacks, positioning himself for the inevitable moment. The shogunate he built would pass through 14 generations without interruption. No other political system in Japanese history lasted as long or brought as complete a peace. His was not the most dramatic life in the Sengoku period. It was simply the most successful.
Sanada Yukimura never became shogun. He never ruled a domain. He had no political power, no strategic initiative, no realistic chance of changing the outcome at Osaka. And yet his name endures in Japanese memory more vividly than most of the men who won. The samurai ideal, loyalty unto death, courage in the face of impossible odds, the willingness to die beautifully rather than survive dishonorably, found its perfect expression in a losing charge across a summer battlefield. Defeat, in Japan's warrior tradition, has its own kind of immortality. Yukimura understood this. He chose it.
Next time on Samurai Chronicles. Before Sekigahara, before the shogunate, before Osaka, Tokugawa Ieyasu spent 50 years as a hostage, a vassal, and a subordinate before he became the man who outlasted them all. The patient warlord's journey begins.
If the fall of the samurai age speaks to you, subscribe and join us for every new episode. Osaka burned in 1615. The embers, it turns out, have never quite gone cold.